So I found something interesting in the Hebrew. So I wanted to use this as an example of why learning Hebrew is so important when studying the Hebrew Tanakh, um, what some call the Old Testament. Um, anyway, I'll get right to it. But if you work with a mere translation of the Hebrew Tanakh, I think it's fair to say that you get around 1/4 of the meaning from the text, because there are other levels of meaning that are going on in the Hebrew that get stripped away when it's translated to another language. So here we have Genesis chapter 6. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make an end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And then this is the verse I'm focusing on. Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, make rooms in the ark and cover it inside and out with pitch. So that rooms, or that word rooms, is what I'm focusing on. So I wanted to, it just, I don't know, something told me to look up that word because it seemed anachronistic to me that someone would be making rooms even in a maritime vessel, naval vessel, whatever you want to call it, especially that far back, because like even in the Middle Ages you had buildings that didn't yet have rooms, and people like slept in like open bays, kind of like a World War II barracks, like for a person to have their own room was that was like a status symbol. And um, and even in your smallest dwellings, people might think that those were like rooms, but it was usually just a roof over four walls. So, like, the small size of it didn't mean that it was a room. It was just that's how it was. That was the size of it. Made it look like a room, but you didn't have uh, much in the way of individual rooms in the building, probably. Now, in castles, um, I think I've seen like some evidence of rooms, but I don't know what the dates are in those castles. Anyway, so the word just seemed anachronistic to me, so I thought I should look it up in Hebrew, and I did. And what I found out was that indeed the translation was not so good. And it's surprising to me that you can have like so many translations, and they can almost across the board get it wrong. It's baffling to me. It almost makes me want to create my own English translation just to get a more faithful literal translation. Um, and I'm nowhere even near qualified to do that, but that would be just from using the available resources to arrive at the real wording in the text. So in this one, if we look at this word that was translated rooms, it's Hebrew Strong's number 7064, Cain. Not, I don't think it's anything like Cain, the brother of Abel, though the spelling might be similar. But yeah, Cain. So this word is translated nest, 12 times and then room 1 time. So the one time it's translated room for Noah's Ark, that's the aberration. Otherwise, the word is translated nest throughout the Hebrew Tanakh. And then it comes from, it's apparently a contraction of another word which means to make a nest. So now we don't have to just take the resource's word for it. We can look to see how it's used throughout the Tanakh. Numbers 24:21, and this is where it's talking about the Kenites, and the spelling there is similar to the word nest, so it's almost like there's a play on words going on there. But it says, "In your nest is set in the rock." Deuteronomy 22:6. If you chance to come upon a bird's nest, and then it talks about eggs. Deuteronomy 32, chapter 11, like an eagle that stirs up its nest, that flutters over its young, spreading out its wings, catching them, bearing them on its pinions. Job chapter 29 verse 18, then I thought, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. Now that one may not let's see if there's anything about, it's talking about fangs and prey. Cleave to the roof of their mouth. Excuse me for the coughing. So I'm not really seeing there anything that's like bird or egg related. It just says, I shall die in my nest, and I shall multiply my days as the sand. So we could say that there's no overt connections to the theme of birds and eggs there. But if we go back, Job chapter 39 verse 27, now this would be the same book. Is it at your command that the eagle mounts up and makes his nest on high? So there's another passage there in Job where nest is thematically related in the very same verse to a bird. Psalms chapter 84 verse 3, even the sparrow finds a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may lay her young. Proverbs chapter 27 verse 8, like a bird that strays from its nest is a man who strays from his home. Isaiah 10 verse 14, my hand has found like a nest the wealth of the peoples, and as men gather eggs that have been forsaken, so I have gathered all the earth, and there was none that moved a wing or opened the mouth or chirped. Like multiple thematic connections there. Isaiah chapter 16 verse 2, like fluttering birds, like scattered nestlings, are the daughters of Moab at the fords of Arnon. Jeremiah chapter 49 verse 16, clefts of the rock, who hold the height of the hill, though you make your nest as high as the eagles, I will bring you down from there. Obadiah chapter 1 verse 4, though you soar aloft like the eagle, though your nest is set among the stars, thence I will bring you down, says the Creator. Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 9, woe to him who gets evil gain for his house, to set his nest on high, to be safe from the reach of harm. So there, that's probably not a direct, let's see, not a direct thematic connection to birds or eggs. but that would be, a case where maybe just the word nest itself stands on its own. So I think it's pretty clear that nest would be the better translation. Now, how can I argue this? Well, because later in the story, Noah sends out a raven and a dove. So there's a theme there with birds and with nests. Now, obviously, the raven and the dove, those weren't the only animals in the ark. But translating it nest, I think, provides like a thematic connection with the raven and the dove. Now, someone may say, well, if each animal had its own nest, well, then that was like a room, and in the modern mind, it's better to translate it rooms. See, the thing is, like, our modern minds, we can grapple with ideas and differences in how things are done. If you tell us that there's a big boat and nests are made for each kind of animal, then that's something our brains can process. We can say, oh, well, I guess they didn't have stables or rooms for each animal. Instead, they made like a big nest for them. And who knows? Maybe like the walls of the nest were even more vertical, like some bird nests are, right? So that those nests contained the animals, kind of like when they make these little rickety, like I don't know if they're made out of willow branches or what. They make these little rickety fences, like in Africa, um, and they're not like made of stout lumber like you might see in the American West, but somehow like those fences made out of the thin branches are enough to keep animals out of their yard, as it were. So maybe these nests were like constructed similar to how nests are constructed by birds, where they take bits of this and that and they weave them together. And then that was used to contain the animals in that area, because you wouldn't want like certain animals mixing with other animals. So anyway, I think it's just unnecessary to translate that word as rooms when nests would be perfectly fine and our brains could process that imagery just fine. And I wasn't there on the ark, but it might be that nest really is the better description of what was made for these animals than rooms. Because I can't see like it seems like he spent a lot of time making the actual ark, but then to spend all that time to make all the lumber walls separating each animal when it may not have been necessary. Because like some animals are funny. Like if you just erect a suggestion not to move into another area, if what you've erected provides the least little bit of resistance, the animals, those particular animals, as long as they're calm and peaceful and they're not disturbed, then they they won't try to break down that obstacle, even though it's well within their power to do so. You know, they're very impressionable or what's the word? I'm just going to say suggestible, um, even though that might not even be a word. So, at least not a word in the dictionary. I don't see why it couldn't be a word, but anyway, there's probably a better word that says the same thing. So, I don't really see a reason for translators to choose rooms over nests in this case. And this is an example of how digging into the Hebrew can really benefit your Bible study and result in a more accurate understanding of what the text is telling you. It's also an example of how a mere translation of the Hebrew Tanakh is not providing you the real message. So, to think that you can come along with an English translation that you've just started reading maybe 20 years ago, or maybe to your, giving you the benefit of the doubt, maybe you're 70 years old and you were raised on that English translation. Nevertheless, you are probably not part of a community that has grappled with this text, for this body of literature, for generations. And it's not really part of your culture. You probably watched the Lawrence Welk show and Howdy Doody and who knows what else as part of your entertainment, whereas in Jewish culture, Torah was their quote unquote entertainment. It's what they occupied themselves with day and night. So, for someone thumbing one of these mere translations and then presuming to lecture to the Jewish people who have been able to read the Hebrew Tanakh in its original language, even as children, for generations, is the definition of chutzpah, or it's really, what's the word in the King James Version? Is it vainglorious? Um, it's misplaced or unfounded pride. Now, granted, the Christian missionary, or even just the lay Christian who's not paid to be a missionary, he might be doing it out of the best of intentions. Like, he may have, he thinks, an appreciation or a love for the Jewish people, and he may want to help them, he thinks, improve their lives. But that doesn't rule out the possibility that that person is ignorant, and that what he's bringing them as a gift, as an offering, is really something that the Creator would give side eye to, or look askance at, because it's not really a good offering. It's poison, or it's something again that contradicts what the Creator actually commanded the children of Israel. So then, whereas you think you're doing God's work, you're actually working against the Creator. And whereas you think you're doing something to benefit for the Jewish people, you're actually working to do them harm. So, really, any student of the Bible really should start studying the Hebrew, because that's the key to getting to the truth, the real truth of the matter. Um, Once you do that, it's going to open up uh, much of the depth, or shall I say, not much, but it's going to open up more of the depth of the Bible to you, and you'll be able to access what you couldn't access in a mere English translation.